Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We are back.
Shabbat Shalom.
Continuing on with our look at the triennial Torah portion. We had a little break in the Midrash due to us going to the fresh wheat gathering, which was pretty fresh. We had a good time, but now we are back getting into this Torah portion. We're going to go ahead and just jump right in. We're going to go, I'm going to pull up the chapter. We'll just go ahead and read through Deuteronomy 24. We'll read through the chapter, and then we'll go ahead and talk about all the things that we see over here. Let me go ahead and pull this up for us. Deuteronomy. Where's my cursor? Deuteronomy 24. Go ahead and read that nice and loud there.
It says, when a man takes a wife and shall marry her, then it shall be, if she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found a matter of uncoveredness in her, and he shall write her a certificate of divorce, and put it in her hand, and send her out of his house. And if she left his house, and went and became another man's wife, and the latter husband shall hate her, and write her a certificate of divorce, and put it in her hand, and send her out of his house. Or when the latter husband dies, who took her to be his wife, then her former husband who sent her away is not allowed to take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled, for that would be an abomination before Yahweh. And do not bring sin on the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance. When a man has taken a new wife, let him not go out into the army, nor let any matter be imposed upon him. He shall be exempt 1 year for the sake of his home, to rejoice with his wife whom he has taken. No one takes in pledge the lower or the upper millstone, for he would be taking a life in pledge. When a man is found kidnapping any of his brothers of the children of Israel, and treats him harshly or sells him, then the kidnapper shall die. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. Take heed in an outbreak of leprosy to diligently guard and do according to all that the priests, the Levites, teach you, as I have commanded them, so you shall guard to do. Remember what Yahweh your Elohim did to Miriam on the way when you came out of Mitzrayim. When you lend your brother a loan, do not go into his house to get his pledge. Stand outside and let the man to whom you lend bring the pledge out to you. And if the man is poor, do not sleep with his pledge. By all means, return the pledge to him at sundown, and he shall sleep in his own garment, and shall bless you, and it shall be righteousness to you before Yahweh your Elohim. Do not oppress a hired servant who is poor and needy, of your brothers or of your strangers who are in your land within your gates. Give him his wages on the same day, and do not let the sun go down on it, for he is poor and lifts up his being to it, so that he does not cry out against you to Yahweh, and it shall be sin in you. Fathers are not put to death for their children, and children are not put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin. Do not twist the right ruling of a stranger or the fatherless, nor take the garment of a widow. But you shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and that Yahweh your Elohim ransomed you from there. Therefore I am commanding you to do this word. When you reap your harvest in your land, out in your field, and have forgotten a sheaf in the field, do not go back to get it. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, so that Yahweh your Elohim might bless you in all the works of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, do not examine the branch behind you. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, do not glean behind you. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim. Therefore I am commanding you to do this word.
All right. Very good. Very good. All right, so let's go back up here. Look at a few things over here this week. Of course, we're dealing with Deuteronomy 24. Today's Torah portion, which we'll spend a lot of time speaking about divorce. Okay, divorce. So when we look over here, a few things I want to take note of. And anyone here who's here, go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section. Be sure to try to get to all that we have over there. Okay, so let's look over here. When a man takes a wife, marries her, and it says that he finds no favor in his eyes because he has found a matter of, this version says, uncoveredness. Some versions say uncleanness, or even indecency. So first of all, let's look and see what this thing is that constitutes the man to go ahead and write her a certificate of divorce, put it in her hand, and send her out of his house. Like, what is this thing that he finds in her? I just happened to look at this footnote. We have a whole command for the fact that if he finds at this time, at some point in the future, that she's not a maiden, that she previously fornicated, this I don't like this footnote. Okay. But let's look at this word here. Oh, excuse me. Let me pull up. It's translated as uncleanness. It is erva. Erva. It's interesting that this word means nudity, pudenda, disgrace, blemish, nakedness, shame, unclean, or uncleanness. This word is interesting that it has the literal meaning of nudity, but when we look at it, it can't actually mean that he found a matter of nudity in her, right? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? If he was to find a matter of nudity in her, that's just what a husband would do with a wife. He definitely would find a matter of nudity with her, right? And so we can't look at this and think about this from the literal understanding of this word erva to mean nakedness. But we do see within the word the idea of shame. And so when we think about the fact that it's shameful to be seen, for your nakedness to be seen, say in public, right? Mm-hmm. And so the idea of nakedness brings about it brings about shame, right? It brings about a type of uncleanness, right? And so when we think about this word that's translated here as uncoveredness, or again, we're thinking about how it could be indecency or some blemish or disgrace. Again, it's not the literal nudity which the actual word erva kind of brings about, nakedness, right? But I suppose it could potentially have something, it could be connected to it, but it's not necessarily confined to the idea of nakedness. Shame, uncleanness is more the point over here. This thing that the husband is unable to accept in his wife, that he's not able to continue with the situation, right? So then there's these things that he does, right? He the last thing that he does is to send her out of his house, right? But first he finds this indecency, right? He writes the bill, he puts it in her hand, right, as if there's a formal kind of thing that happens, right? He's not just like, just get out of here, I'm done with you, right? He writes her this bill of divorce, he puts it in her hand, and he sends her out of his house. Oh, let's look at this other word. We want to look at this other word too here, because we have the cause, which is this erva, this unclean thing, this erva, davar. And once he has that, he writes her a certificate. He writes her a sefer of divorce. So what's this word here? We want to add this to our situation. A bill of divorcement. A carry tote. A cutting of the matrimonial bond. Now this thing over here is the literal severing of the situation, right? And this is something that we have to kind of think about preliminarily, going forward as we look at this, from the different perspectives. The certificate of divorce is the cutting of the matrimonial bond, right? This is the thing that severs the situation, right? Not the fact that he found something, and not the fact that he sends her somewhere, but he had to first write the bill, put it in her hand, and then he sent her out of the house. Okay, so another thing we want to look at before we look at other situations over here, these verses over here say to us, if she then leaves the house, which she did leave the house, and went in to become another man's wife. They add this into the command so that we can get some more perspective on the situation. And the latter husband shall hate her. It's interesting that I just thought about this as I'm looking at this now. The latter husband hates her and then writes her a certificate of divorce. What's this word here? Sane, hate, enemy, foe.
Wow.
Odious.
Thorns.
Interesting.
Strong word.
Hatred. It's an antonym of love. He doesn't love her. Right?
Do you see? Do you have the ancient on there? Because it at the top, the bottom.
Let's see. It's probably at the bottom. There's a lot. Hold on.
There it is. Thorn. She's a thorn in the side.
That's what that is, right? You have the samach and the noon. A continual thorn, right? A thorn that continues, right? So there's hate. But it's interesting now that I'm just looking at this part of it. I just thought about this. I never paid attention to this, all week when I was thinking about this. That this is a separate thing. Over there, the wife was first had this uncleanness that was found in her, and then that being the prerequisite for the bill of divorce to be put in her hand and then to be sent out. But in this later husband, it says that he hates her. So I'm wondering, do we then just assume that he also found an uncleanness within her? Maybe it was the same thing. I don't know that. In her, and then writes her a bill of divorce. Or is it just kind of a general hate? I think we can't exclude verse 1 from 3. Whatever is necessary to kind of validate the divorce. He finds that same thing, and I guess you can kind of probably say that the uncleanness that was created cause for the first husband not to love her anymore. If we're saying that not loving is it's hating, it's just so harsh. But so the second husband put the bill of divorce in her hand
Same process.
and sends her out of the house. And when the later husband dies, so if that happens, or if the later husband divorces her, or if he dies, the former husband, the first one who sent her away, is not allowed to take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled. And so it's interesting when we look at this, for that would be an abomination to Yahweh for her to go back. It's interesting when we look at this, something that this verse helps for us to be able to understand this. There's a type of shame, stigmatization, defilement even, that goes along with the divorced woman. When she goes off and marries again, it basically seals the idea of her returning. It totally, kind of, it destroys that possibility.
Can't go back.
Can't go back. I was thinking about why though. Because it's calling her defiled, but she's defiled by the second husband. But why wouldn't the second husband be? Why wouldn't the divorced woman be defiled to the second husband by the first husband? I was wondering.
Because that union got severed by the divorce.
Right, but so the second one though, either by death or by
severance.
by written decree.
She just can't go back. You can't fix a broken glass.
Well, what's the broken glass? The divorce decree?
Or union.
The second union?
Well, the second union just totally destroyed the possibility of the first union.
I'm saying that if the woman, if they got divorced and she didn't marry somebody else,
then she could go back.
I feel like she could go back
because she didn't get mixtures that happened.
Okay. However, for the second husband, the mixture is there.
Mm-hmm.
The mixture is there. It's just it's interesting. Anybody has any comments? Put your comments over in the comment section over here. But there was an understanding within Israel that there was this thing. Well, not the decree, but the status, this level of defilement, I would say, that just went along with with the divorced woman. And then, as we see over here in verse 4, once she has been defiled, which we're saying that this defilement is her, being joined to another man, then now this turns into this abomination. It says before the Most High. It kind of highly heightens this whole situation over here. And so we have over here what we see in the scriptures, what helps us to understand this idea of, divorce, right? And so when we look at this, let's go over to Deuteronomy 22, because the uncleanness is not the same as marrying someone that you thought was a maiden. The uncleanness was not the same thing as marrying someone that you thought was a maiden. Because we have a whole thing for that. If we look over at verse 20, read verse 20 and 21.
But if the matter is true, that the girl was not found a maiden, then they shall bring out the girl to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done wickedness in Israel to whore in her father's house. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst.
Okay, very good. So the uncleanness then is not that she wasn't who she said she was coming into the situation, right? Because if that's the case, then they killed her, right? She was killed, right? So that is not the situation. Let's see, if we look over at let's go up here, 3:13 and 14 here.
When any man takes a wife, and shall go into her, and shall hate her, and shall make abusive charges against her, and bring an evil name on her, and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I did not find her a maiden, then the father and mother of the young woman shall take and bring out the proof of the girl's maidenhood to the elders of the city at that gate.
Okay, so you couldn't just, again, we look at this over here, you couldn't just be making things up. It had to be substantiated. But I'm saying we have different commands for these things. If she was, if she wasn't, if somebody tried to say that she was and she wasn't, we have these over here. If we look at, we read 20, 21 and 22. Oh, 22, read 22, add 22 to this here. Verse 22 right there. Read verse 22.
It says, when a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, then both of them shall die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman.
Okay, and so in uncleanness then was an adultery. The uncleanness was an adultery, because if it was found that a man is found lying with a married woman that was married to a husband, then the man and the woman are stoned. Okay? And so, again, when we look over here, we can say that there's this level of shame. They're using the word that is that means nakedness, but the idea is some type of a shameful thing. But adultery, I'm saying, can't be what the thing is, because the penalty for sexual immorality is death. Okay? And the only reason why we're thinking about this is because, of course, people bring up the words of Yeshua and what he says. And so let's go over to the book of Matthew. Let's go over to the book of Matthew. First of all, let's just go over to read 17 and 18 right here. Matthew 5:17 and 18.
17 and 18 says, "Do not think that I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, till the heaven and the earth pass away, one yod or one title shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be done."
Okay, very good. So Yeshua, out of his own mouth, makes a statement over here that he didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets. He came to fulfill them. And when we understand that word over there that's translated as complete or fulfill, it means to bring it to its prophetic completeness, its prophetic end. In other words, the Torah and the prophets, are at the end of the day, we're able to find prophecy within them. And the completion of the things that the Torah points towards, the completion of the thing that the prophets point towards, come about through Yeshua. And so what he's not doing is doing away with the law, statutes, and commands, or destroying the law, statutes, and commands. And so when he says things, he could build on what's there, but I don't believe that he'll take away from what's there. Right? He'll use the Torah and the prophets as a foundation for what he says, but he said out of his own mouth that he says what the Father said for him to say. The Torah is, in fact, the words of the Father. The words of the Father came also through the prophets. And so when we look at the things of what Yeshua is saying, we have to look at them through the lens of the Torah and not the other way around. Right? And so in the same chapter, Yeshua, well, first of all, let's do this. Let's read verse 27 through 29. Let's read this here.
You heard that it was said to those of old, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone looking at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And if your right eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out and throw it away from you. For it is better for you that one of your members perish than for your entire body to be thrown into Gehenna.
Okay, very good. So here he says, he brings up adultery, right? Which we know adultery is a stonable offense, right? We just read that over in Deuteronomy chapter 22, right? And so he brings it up. And then so what he does, he says, if you are looking at a woman to lust for her, you committed adultery in your heart. Wow. But he literally for us over here, potentially, he literally over here increased the boundaries for what adultery is. Because, you know, if we look up adultery, this is some type of sexual act involving people that belong to other people. But Yeshua says over here in verse 28, if you just have a thought in your mind, you committed adultery in your heart. So we gotta think about something that Yeshua does with words. Okay? Because right after he says that, if your right eye offends you, then you're supposed to pluck it out. Right, and throw it away. You don't even just pluck it out and just keep it because maybe you'll put it back in. He said pluck it out and throw it away from you. Okay, so how many, by a show of hands, you could put your little wavy hands in the comments. How many people have done something that need to get their eyes plucked out based on what he's saying over there? Like you looked and lusted after somebody, no matter how quick the lust was, you lust in your heart. You're supposed to pluck your eyeball out and throw it away, according to what he says over there, right? If we're supposed to take what he's saying, just as he's literally means these words, like he's literally wanting for you to pluck your eyeball out and throw it away.
Didn't somebody, when you worked at the mental institution, did
someone did do that?
In a mental institution.
In a mental institution, yes. And then after he did that, he had to be on 24-hour watch. Somebody had to be within arm's reach of this person constantly because of the fact that he saw this and he tried to take his eyeball out. Young person, and he's forever blind in one eye because he literally tried to pluck his eyeball out. But what I'm getting at is that Yeshua wants for us to understand the severity of lust. But he's not saying that you need to cut your eyeballs out. But he's saying that you need to think about the things that you're allowing for your eyes to be doing. Because the things that you are allowing your eyes to be doing are going to cause you they're going to pull you in a particular direction. When we think about the idea of adultery in your heart, adultery in your heart can lead to the actual adultery. And I'm saying that he don't want for you to get to the actual adultery. And I think that's the point. You know, when James sits over and talks about this thing that happens in your mind when it's conceived, it's sin. Right? The actual physical act. Now we have these things that happen inside of us that lead us to sin, but are they in fact sin themselves, or are they things that are leading us to sin? I looked at this first only because we looked at the fact that he's speaking about adultery in your heart. As he's admonishing the people not to commit adultery. But when we keep on going down, when we keep on going down in verse 31, read 31 and 32 there.
32 says, it has been said, whoever puts away his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever puts away his wife, except for the matter of whoring, makes her commit adultery. Whoever marries a woman who has been put away commits adultery.
Okay, very good. All right, so the first thing that we have to do over here is understand what's being said. When we look at Matthew 5 and 31, it's easy to understand this because we already know from Deuteronomy 24 verses 1 through 4 that there's these 4 steps. There's these 4 steps that take place. There's the uncleanness. You put the bill of divorce. You write the bill of divorce. You put the bill of divorce in her hands, and then you send her away. And this said, whoever puts away his wife. Let me just say that put away don't mean divorce. Put away means to send her away. He's saying if you're going to put her away, give her a bill of divorce. That's what he said right there. Whoever puts away his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. That's what it said. It has been said. We know that from what it said over in Deuteronomy. But he says, whoever puts away his wife. I don't like this right here. I'm just going to. This translation is interesting here. But again, let's just think about what it's saying here. You put her away. Whoever puts away his wife, except for the matter of uncleanness, is what the Torah says. Over here it says, except for fornication, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a woman who has been put away commits adultery. If we just start even just right here, if you marry a woman who's only been put away, they are not divorced. So if you marry them, you cause them to commit adultery. But the first part, if you put a wife away without, it's basically the same thing. Without the letter of divorcement, the divorcement decree, it makes her an adulterer because she's still married. I think we have this clause in here because if it's because of a matter of whoring, she gets stoned.
She's not even alive.
She don't need a decree because she's gonna be dead. She's gonna be stoned. Whoever puts away his wife, except for fornication, makes her. Now we read this to say that the only reason that you're able to put her away is because of fornication. But I don't know if it's saying that. I don't know that it's saying that.
She would have been killed.
Because according to what we read over in 22, Deuteronomy chapter 22, what happens to that one is she is stoned. And so we have to think about what the Torah actually says to even understand what Yeshua is saying. Matthew 5 and 32, to me, this is easy, right? She's still married, so she's an adulterer because she was never given a bill of divorce. when you look at the King James Version, I'm saying that it erroneously makes this be divorced here. Oh wait, I can't see it because my things are scrolling across the bottom. I'm saying that it erroneously translates this over here as divorced. But this is the same word as this, put away, which is literally just put away or to send away. The divorce comes from the decree. And so whosoever shall put away his wife, saving the cause of fornication, cause her to commit adultery. You just put her away. If you just put her away, she's gonna become an adulteress because she's gonna be away and she's gonna be living her life, and she's still married, so she'll commit adultery. But if somebody, whosoever shall marry her, that is put away, what it says over here, it says divorce. This word is put away. It's the same word as this. There's no reason for them to have changed this word. Same word. That person commits adultery. So again, she's still married. She gets married to someone else. She's obviously an adulteress. But I'm saying that if you was to put away somebody who did commit fornication, there's no reason for the bill of divorce. The bill of divorce is kind of your ticket to be able to marry again. And so if you was a fornicator, you didn't need a ticket. Because what you needed was some leniency and judgment. What you needed, because the consequences are, was death.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
how is she gonna move on if she committed adultery? How is she supposed to be free to move on to another relationship?
We talking about
if the lady committed adultery.
If the lady committed adultery
in Israel, how is she free to move on to another relationship without committing adultery?
I don't know. What do you mean?
I'm saying the interpretation is if the other interpretation holds, if she commits adultery, how is she then free to move on to another relationship and not commit adultery and moving on to another relationship?
Oh, you mean if if she just sent away?
Yeah. With being an adulteress, sent away.
She probably would. In Israel, she would have the stigma of being an adulteress on her.
Yeah.
The bill of divorce actually frees you of that.
Yes.
The bill of divorce says this is an innocent woman. We don't get along with one another properly. I found some uncleanness in her. She's able to come marry somebody else. A person who was an adulteress, that's a whole other thing. And so in Israel, an adulteress is the penalty is death.
And we saw that with Yeshua and the lady who came caught in the act of adultery, ready to stone her.
They was literally about to do the commandment on her.
There's no talk about sending her away or divorce or anything. It's time to go.
They was gathering stones together. And then what Yeshua does is only just deal with the fact that there's probably wicked people trying to judge a wicked person. So he just is really just causing them to look at their own selves. He never said don't stone her. He said the one who's without sin, throw the first stone. Right? And so we have to understand, what the law even was. Okay, what do we have over here? What's it say here? We're looking at this from the perspective of Yeshua being the husband of Israel, being the bride wife. It brings about a greater understanding of a biblical Torah-based marriage. When you think about the fact that, and this part of it, I think, is so powerful, that Israel, in fact, was so wicked. Israel, in fact, was so wicked. The bride of the Most High was so wicked, right? The Most High, in fact, did put Israel away. Is the people, Israel, we became a harlot. Right? Looking at Ezekiel chapter 16, it talks horribly about the people. But the thing that brings us back to the Messiah, it's interesting that Messiah, the husband, first dies in order to that we might be received. And then, but we too die. We too die in order to be received. And so we can understand the fact that, it's not as if the Most High has taken this, this ruined, this defiled bride back after it has become a harlot. Not without the death and resurrection that happens first. And so when we think about the Torah and how the Torah describes all these things, it 100% helps for us to understand the spiritual aspects of all of this, right? Mm-hmm. And so again, let's go over to Matthew 19. Let's look at Matthew 19, another place where Yeshua talks about this putting away or divorce, right? Let's go over here, Matthew 19. Let's read down to verse. Let's read from 1 to verse 9. Here, let me get out of this version here. Matthew 19, verse 1 down to verse 9.
It says, and it came to be, when Yeshua had ended these words, that he left Galilee and came to the borders of Yehuda, beyond the Jordan. Large crowds followed him, and he healed them there. And the Pharisees came to him, trying him, and saying to him, it is right for a man to put away his wife for every reason? And he, answering, said to them, did you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female?
Here, just stop right there. Because the question that they even asked in the first place was putting away a wife for every reason. That's the question that they asked them right there. Right? So it seems like it would be safe to assume that Yeshua is in some way answering this question. The question of, is it right to put away is a man to put away his wife for every reason, right? That's the question. And then the answer is, what'd you read, 4?
Yeah, 4.
All right, keep going first.
It says, and said, for this cause a man shall leave his father and mother, and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Question mark. So that they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what Elohim has joined together, let man not separate.
Okay, stop right there. So, from the beginning, the original intent of marriage was to be forever.
Mm-hmm.
Two becoming one flesh. Right? We talked about last week with Shavuot, unmixing the ingredients for the bread.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, once two have become one, how do you go back to becoming two again? Right? And so the original intent for marriage was forever.
Yep.
All right, for two to become one. This is his answer. He's answering a question. And then verse 7.
Verse 7 says, they said to him, why did Moshe command to give a certificate of divorce and to put her away?
Notice this verse here correctly distinguishes the certificate of divorce and the putting of her away. Right? Because there's two things involved. There's the putting away, which, by the way, these people were doing, just putting people away. And then there's the certificate of divorce, which is the machete that severs the relationship. Right? If I just put her away, I haven't severed anything but the fact that she don't stay over here no more. But she's still my wife. Okay? And so, when you think about it by that understanding, if you marry somebody that's put away, you married a married woman, that's adultery. Like, I don't even know how you marry somebody that's already married. You don't. You're just fornicating. You're just committing adultery.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, but they ask a question. They thinking they stumping him. Well, you saying that the Most High said that it's that two become one. Well, then why did Moses say this? And then keep on going, reading them verse 8.
Verse 8 says, he said to them, because of the hardness of your hearts, Moshe allowed you to put away your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. Mm-hmm. And I say to you, whoever puts away his wife, except on the ground of whoring, and marries another, commits adultery. And whoever marries her, who has been put away, commits adultery.
Okay, very good. So the end part is easy. Right? The second part is easy. Whoever marries somebody who's only just put away, they obviously they're committing adultery.
Yeah.
But when we go back up, whoever puts away his wife and marries another, he said commits adultery.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because when you think about the things that Yeshua would be doing by now decreeing this situation. First of all, if a man wants to marry a second wife, that's not adultery. That's polygyny. Right? And so, but again, we saw back in Matthew chapter 5 where Yeshua was putting an emphasis on the importance of controlling one's mind, and said if you lusted after a woman, then you were committing adultery in your heart. And so over here, he's trying to help for these people to understand that what they were doing in terms of just putting these people away, just putting somebody away, not divorcing them, just putting them away. There's something wrong with that thing that you're doing, except on the grounds of whoring. Of course, that person had a problem. But if you're just putting these people away, and you're not actually severing the relationship, you're having this person to be in limbo while you're just doing whatever floats your boat. Yeshua is saying to these people, you people you're wrong for this. This is wrong for you to be doing this. This is wrong for you to be treating these people in this way, for you to just see something that you are deeming to be unclean in this person, but instead of doing what the commandment actually said, which was to write her a bill of divorce and put it in her hand and then send her away. Sending her away, that was the last thing out of the three things that you were supposed to be doing. But instead, these people were living like these people, these Roman people who would just, the Roman people, they was just some nasty people. They was nasty, covenantless people. And so they would just see a person and they would just decide to just be with that person. And then they would be with them. And then they would decide not to be with them anymore. And then they just wouldn't be with them anymore. And so we sitting up here being with these people, we start doing these things too. And he's saying that you can't be sitting up here just putting these people away. It's one thing if you putting her away because of fornication, because now there's some things that needs to be done. Right, some pretty serious things, right? But if you just sitting up here trying to just put her away and then go and find you somebody else and not deal with the situation properly, this is a problem. Yeshua is not changing any commandments over here. That's not what he's doing. He's not destroying any commandments either, because he already said he wasn't going to be doing that. He's stressing the importance of what these people are sitting out here doing. And he's putting an emphasis on, this whole thing with, putting, not divorce, but not divorce. It don't say divorce in this, but putting these people away, and not giving them a divorce. And so, go ahead.
It's a free method of quote unquote divorce, because they don't have to repay the bride price. If they put her away and they don't do the whole process, then they don't have to pay the bride price.
And so
repay it.
And so when you think about that, right? When you add more fuel to the proverbial fire over here, that's greed inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's greed inside of me. I want to hold on to this thing, but I don't want her no more because she got some uncleanness in her, some indecency. I want to get rid of her, but I ain't trying to come up off them
Shackles.
them shackles. I ain't trying to come up off them shackles, so I'm just gonna put her away. Yeshua don't mention that, and again, when he sits up here and I believe what he's trying to do is deal with the utter wickedness that these people are participating in by trying to put these people away and not deal with the covenant, the marriage covenant, and the proper severance of it. Right? If there's fornication, the thing has already been altered. Right? There's already a break that happened there. Right? But if all you're doing is just putting the person away, and you're not dealing with a proper severance of the marriage, you're committing adultery. That's what you're doing. And if somebody marries this person that you put away, she's not free. That's adultery. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting, when we look at this, I think that it's necessary first to have an understanding of what the Torah says. Because if we look at this, how many things did, first of all, this isn't divorce. It says divorce up here. But it also says to put her away, because there's two things, right? You have divorce, the certificate of divorce, and to put away. But when he starts to talk, it don't say divorce down here. So it's only talking about putting away. And so, for one, we have to think about that. But if the way that people kind of look at this and interpret this to mean that Yeshua is putting a limit on the reason for the divorce, then you got to think about what it is that he's doing by virtue of him doing that. Because number one, I mean, because what people would try to have for you to believe is that the ground of whoring is the only grounds for divorce. And I don't believe that he's saying that right here. I don't believe that he's saying that. I believe that he's dealing with what it says, and that is putting away. Right? And the limbo that's being created by him the man not delivering this certificate of divorce. Because again, if we take this to understand, if we understand this in a way that is kind of, I just want to say generally understood, then he's first of all, polygyny is not a command in the Torah, but it is definitely an allowance. It's definitely something that the people were allowed to do. It wasn't something that the Most High didn't say, I command you to do. Right? He made allowances for the people to do it. Right? Stop talking. he made allowance for it to be done. But he didn't say, I command you to do it. We have laws where he says, if you take another one, they all gotta have food, clothing, and shelter. And so if you say then that what Yeshua is doing over here is now kind of nullifying polygyny, then another thing that he's doing, something that we'll talk about on next week's Torah portion, is the Levirate vow, which calls for you to marry your the wife of your dead brother, the childless wife of your dead brother, which was a literal command. So in that regard, it leaves you don't have to be you're just a sibling. You didn't have to be a non-married sibling. You was just a sibling. And so you're literally commanded in that regard to take on a wife, which could potentially be another wife. And so there's allowances that are removed by this verse in its quote unquote traditional understanding. There's commandments that are removed from the traditional understanding of this verse. And I don't believe Yeshua was doing
And there is no allowance.
allowance.
The way they say it is giving an allowance is only because in today's culture, society, an adulterous woman doesn't get stoned.
Oh, what you saying? Allowance?
I'm saying that the allowance being adultery or whoring.
The exception. No.
The exception.
No. I'm saying the allowance that's been that is taken away is multiple wives.
Okay.
The exception clause. The exception clause. There's nothing else to be done with that, because these are people who are walking in the Torah. If you find your wife to be an adulterer, she's judged by that. But when we think about the certificate of divorce for that woman is her decree of innocence.
It's saying she wasn't an adulteress.
It's saying that she's able to move forward. This paper that she has means that she's able to go on and live her life. And so she has this certificate of innocence. And so you can't have a certificate of innocence if you're guilty.
No.
Right?
Yes. And that's why it doesn't make sense in my mind to say what we would say the traditional Christian interpretation of this verse.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. First of all, because the thing that they started even talking about was putting away, which we know is separate from divorce. It's the last step, in fact. And these are they're not synonyms, right? There's a word for sending away, and there's a word for divorce, and they're two different words. may be allowed lawful, however, may not be expedient. What you talking about?
Polygamy.
Oh, yes. I agree with that. And I would say that for divorce as well. It's something that, it's allowable, lawful, but not expedient. And we see that with Deuteronomy 24 Deuteronomy 24 verse 4. Because once that severance has happened and she goes off and becomes free and be connected to another person, she's not able to return. So something we're not able to pinpoint what that is, but some type of defilement, which is what it's called, happens when she goes off and joins with another person. The joining of holy matrimony, this thing, as Yeshua said, was created to last forever. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It was something that the Most High created, and that something was created for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the fact that we are these human people, and we sit up here and we do these things, we have these things about us. He made it possible, and let's get this straight. When we look over here and when it talks about Moses, what Moses did is only what the Most High said that he could do. Okay, it's not something that he made up within his own self. The Most High allowed for these things to happen. And so I'm saying that, when we look at this from a traditional standpoint, it'll have people out here, just feeling like they're just supposed to be single for their whole lives.
Eunuchs.
And some people may be made to be eunuchs, and some people aren't. But I don't think that we gain this from looking at this for what it's literally saying. Okay? I think that the most important part over here that's missing from Matthew 19 and what it's talking about is the fact that these people aren't actually divorcing these people. They're not divorcing them. They're only just putting them away. And so for the woman who is put away, she's not divorced. She's an adulteress. But Yeshua wants to bring importance to the fact that there needs to be a severance where he's saying to these people, what you're doing is immoral. Okay, so I'm going to look at some other verses over here. Let's go over to people's favorite verse over here. Malachi. This is people's favorite verse over here. And let me just say this. I've already said it. Marriage is forever. Marriage is forever. But marriages sometimes end. And it don't have to be because of on the grounds of whoring, as it says over here. Sometimes it's other things, right? But let's look over here in Malachi.
There's a couple of things. There's a couple of comments.
Are they? Oh, they just popped up. I wasn't looking. Let's see. What Moshe commanded was a bill of divorce, which was being taken advantage of by giving it for every reason. Joshua clarifies what the uncleanness is that validates a reason divorce and death. Well, I will say that the question that they asked was, in fact, can you... Well, first of all, yes, Moses did command the bill of divorce. But I think that it's important to understand that in at least Matthew 19, the question was involved putting away, which was not dealing with the bill of divorce. These people was just putting people away and not properly divorcing them. And so I think that once we get that understanding, when you look at this, the words that's being used over here, he's literally saying to these people, if you only just put someone away, you're causing an adulterous situation because you haven't severed the relationship. I think that's the most important part of properly understanding these verses over here, because again, we can't say that Moses' uncleanness was adultery or fornication,
Because that was dumb.
because we read in the previous chapter that fornication equals death. And so if we said that, she was found to be an adulteress, here, let me write you this slip up, and then you go and become another man's adulteress. I'm trying to be nice over here. We can't say that what we see in Deuteronomy 24, 1-4 is actually fornication. So it's not the same thing as what we see what Yeshua says in Matthew. In Matthew, Yeshua is saying, if it's fornication, it's over, right? And so I think that to me that there's a huge issue there, because if we take out the commas and just get to what he's saying without the exception, who shall put away his wife and shall marry another commits adultery. That's the point that he's making that statement. Except if there's fornication, then you could put her away and she's gonna get stoned, and then you could do whatever you want to do. If she's getting stoned, you don't need a decree of divorce. She's gonna be killed. But Deuteronomy 24, it can't be dealing with that because it already told us that a woman and a man found in fornication, they become stoned. But Yeshua most definitely brings light to the wickedness of these people who wanted to just hold on to the parts that they liked and get rid of the other parts, to get rid of physical woman and don't have to pay the money, pay the price. What's this thing right here? So what happens to the man that sent her off with a divorce? Can he marry, or will his new wife become defiled? Okay, so well, there's no mention of divorce, first of all. It's just putting away. And so the man who sends the woman off don't mean that he divorced her. That's the thing that we gotta kind of key in on. It's not that he divorced her. He sent her away. In fact, he didn't divorce her. That's the problem.
You're in limbo.
Okay, though that word that is used over there in Matthew 19 is the word for sending away. But sending away, you needed the divorcement decree. You needed the bill of divorce. And so without the divorce, the whole situation is murky. And what Yeshua is trying to get these people to understand is that these people were abusing their rights, because they did have a right to have another wife if they was able to take care of it. But there was ways that you did things and it wasn't doing things properly. And so Yeshua is getting this point across. And so now we turn this into, outside of the time of, what they're doing in those days. Now in our times, we turn it into, I divorced a person and I didn't divorce them because of fornication. So now I can't get married again. Based on these verses over here. This is not what these verses are saying over here. Excuse me. What Yeshua wants for the people to do is to properly dissolve these relationships, before trying to go and get other relationships. That's what he's dealing with. He didn't redefine adultery. He didn't nullify polygyny. Right? He didn't do away with the Levirate law. He didn't do all of these things, right? Because he said first, before he said all of those things, I didn't come to destroy the law. He would definitely be destroying the Levirate law if he silently nullified and eradicated polygyny in Matthew chapter 19, which is what he would have to have done by making these words, taking them from a literal standpoint. And so again, we just have to be able to, really understand the Torah first. And then also another thing to understand is how Yeshua speaks, like how he talks. You have to look back and see, how he does things. Because again, he just called a person an adulterer because they committed it in their mind. not to say that it's not a real thing, but I think what he's talking about is just the importance of, these acts per se.
People just be taking them so lightly.
They don't.
And it's not something to be taken lightly.
No, it's not. It's not. It just isn't. What's it say here? Adam tried to blame the Most High for his wife's unclean act and they both got cursed. I believe it was solely up to him. Adam would have put his wife away for what she did. He should have put her away. I say it all the time. He
The words to put away.
he sat up here and went along with these things when he could have just said, I'm not following you down this path. I don't want none of that fruit. The Most High said, don't eat that. But he got caught up. He got caught up and he fell for the okie doke. He could have became one flesh with somebody else. But he decided, but I think again that's part of this thing in the way that he makes us, where like you sit up here and you just get joined with these people from spiritually. It's weird. It's weird how we get connected.
He went down with the ship.
He went down with the ship because he just was
joined to her.
He was joined to her. He literally became one flesh, for better or for worse. And so again, I'm saying, marriage is in fact forever. It is in fact forever. But we see reasons in the scriptures for that severance to happen.
That's right.
And it's not willy-nilly, which is another thing. These people, they was putting these people away, not divorce. They was putting people away willy-nilly, which is what they even started talking about this for in the first place. And, Yeshua took them back to the beginning, proving a point. Marriage is this sacred thing. It's this sacred thing, and two people become one. And you people sitting up here and dealing with this thing as if it's nothing. Well, I think that also has to do with the language that he's using. When he's saying that you're an adulterer, if you put this person away and don't give her a bill of divorce,
Right.
You're an adulterer. You're an adulterer if you take it somebody else. She's an adulterer if somebody takes her. I think all of this is emphasis on the importance of the act. Okay, what's this say over here? Adam's head, Yahweh. Yehoshua said that it was not so, putting away a wife from the beginning. We never read it of Adam and Chava separating or divorcing. No, he stayed with her. And they both were penalized for. I mean, after the fact, they both, by the time he eats the fruit, they're in the same boat. So there's no point in doing it. If he was going to do it, it would have been if she had the fruit and he didn't.
That should have been the point.
That should have been the point.
He can't.
But once he joined her, once he joined in on what she was doing, he's
guilty.
He's just as guilty as she is. Yeah. Okay, but all right. So I wanted to also look at thinking about this. I want to go over to Ephesians because this is something that's important here. If we look at Ephesians 5. Oh Lord, let me put this up on the screen here. Read for us. Let's see how far I go back up. Just start reading at 25.
Husbands, love your wives, as Messiah also did love the assembly and gave himself for it, in order to set it apart and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, in order to present it to himself a splendid assembly, not having spot or wrinkle or any of this sort, but that it might be set apart and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but feeds and cherishes it, as also the master does the assembly. Because we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones, for this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. The secret is great, but I speak concerning Messiah and the assembly. However, you too, every one, let each one love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she fears her husband.
Okay, very good. 32. This secret is great. This is a great mystery. This thing that is being spoken of here in regards to the Messiah and the assembly. When we think about and understand the significance of a marriage, the significance of a man and a wife, when we and the significance of how that pictures the Messiah and the assembly in the context of divorce, do we think if Messiah being the husbandman and the assembly being the bride, do we think that there's divorce in that situation? Of course there is. Of course there is. Of course there is. And why would we limit it to one thing to say, well, there's one reason that the Messiah cuts us off. There's only one thing that we could do that causes us to be separated from Messiah. I don't know that. I can think of many things that the Messiah would not have for us to be doing. He wants for us to live a life that is exemplary of the character of the Most High. And so anything that we may do outside of that character could create a potential problem. And so when we think about, again, a marriage, we look back at Israel coming out of Babylon, and look at Ezra and Nehemiah dealing with, telling the people to get rid of their Gentile wives. The whole time the Most High is talking to Israel, dealing with not dealing with these people that were going to cause us to go against him and his will. And so when we think about an uncleanness inside of a woman, when we think about this erva devar, this unclean thing that we find inside of her that we want to put to write a bill of divorce and put it in her hand and send her off, not following in the ways of the master is most definitely an unclean thing. It's most definitely an unclean thing. If our marriage is a picture of Messiah and the assembly, and the husband and wife are unequally yoked, Paul says over and says not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Oh, he was just talking about just friends. He wasn't talking about being yoked in marriage. That's not what he meant when he said don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. I'm being facetious. I'm saying that there's no difference. There's no difference between that. There's no difference between that and Nehemiah 13, 23 and 30, and Ezra 10, 1 through 3, where you have these people who are trying to establish Israel, and they're married to these strange women. When we think about what the Most High says in the Shema, right? Acknowledging the fact that he is one first, but then it talks about the fact that you love the Most High with all your heart, mind, soul, body, and then diligently teach your children. The thing that's implied when you talk about the idea of teaching your children is first yourself being taught or knowing. If I'm going to diligently teach the law, statutes, and commands to my children, I got to first know them first so that I could teach them. The action is explicit, but the other part of it is implied that I even know it in the first place in order to teach it. And so if I have a wife who don't walk in the ways of the Most High, how's she supposed to teach the children? How's she supposed to fulfill the commandment of diligently teaching the children? She can't. She can't do it. That's some uncleanness that I've been found inside of her. I got set up with this wife, and I'm ready. We start having children, and then I find out she's just this terribly rebellious person. She hates all of the things of the Most High, and she's not able to do this command, which is we're commanded to do. That's some uncleanness. That's a reason. Do you think that whenever Paul says over in First Corinthians chapter 7. Hey, let's look over there. First Corinthians chapter 7. Because people have you believe that you're just supposed to just be with people just forever. And Yeshua said for you to be with them forever, unless there's fornication. But I don't believe we're looking at these things the right ways over here. I want to look at I just started reading at verse 1 here.
Verse 1. And concerning the matters you wrote to me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. But because of whoring, let each one have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. Let the husband render to his wife what is her due, and likewise also the wife to her husband. And the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another except with agreement for a time, to give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again so that Satan does not try you because of your lack of self-control. And I say this as a concession, not as a command. For I wish that all men were even as I myself, but each one has his own gift from Elohim, one in this way and another in that. And I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am. But if they do not have self-control, let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn. And to the married I command, not I, but the master. A wife should not separate from a husband. But if she is indeed separated, let her remain unmarried, or be restored to favor with her husband. And let a husband not...
Oh, wait, hold on. What's this word right here? Hold on. Let not the wife... Oh, yeah. Verse 10. This word right here. Oh, this is just... Okay. Alright, good. That's just a separated word. It doesn't really means that. It's not. Okay, keep on going.
Keep on going. Where I stopped.
11.
But if she is indeed separated, let her remain unmarried or be restored to favor with her husband. And let a husband not send away a wife. And to the rest I say, not the master. If any brother has an unbelieving wife, and she thinks well to live with him,
Oh, here it is.
let him not send her away. And a woman who has an unbelieving husband, and he thinks well to live with her, let her not send him away. For the unbelieving husband has been set apart in the wife, and the unbelieving wife has been set apart in the husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but now they are set apart.
Okay, so... Oh, read 15 too.
And if the unbelieving one separates, let him separate himself. A brother or a sister has not been enslaved in such matters, but Elohim has called us to peace.
Okay, very good. So, this, over here, it talks about these unbelieving spouses. These unbelieving spouses that it says... that 14 for the unbelieving husband has been set apart in the wife, and the unbelieving wife set apart in the husband. This sanctified by, the unbelieving one being sanctified by the other one.
Mm-hmm.
This is potential. It's potential. It could potentially be so, where that could be done in terms of the unbelieving spouse coming to the knowledge of the truth by way of the the leading, instructing, persuading even of the believing spouse. But it's not something that's just automatic. Like if I'm a wicked man with a righteous wife, just by a simple fact of her being righteous don't cause me to be righteous just by osmosis. Right? There's a potential exists for there to be some type of coming to the knowledge by the other person, but it's not some kind of an automatic thing, right? What you have here is a totally dysfunctional situation, which can be fixed. It can be fixed, but it most certainly is not ideal. And how does a house divided stand? Yeshua said it cannot stand. And so Paul gives you, I feel like he gives the option here, But I can't look to this and say that he's trapping me into these places where the believing sanctifies the unbelieving.
I mean, if the man is righteous and the woman isn't, she can't die and then go to the kingdom and be like, well, my husband was sanctified.
No. Or even vice versa. No.
And the children can't be like, oh, well, my believing mother prayed for me, and so that's why I should be accepted in, even though I'm wicked.
Exactly.
The sanctifying isn't necessarily like making them holy. But
no, it isn't.
There's a potential for it to happen.
Yes, exactly. And so all I'm saying is that, we have to take all of these things into account. Does the Most High want for us to live? First of all, you can't enter into these situations in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
People have to be wise with their choosing. I feel like we got to go back to the old ways of these prepared marriages and stuff, where these people you just sit back and we'll take care of all of these things. You don't even got to think about it. Just make yourself ready, like, because I can't have these people bringing no heathens around here. I can't have these people doing this, right? Because we want to be able to build things that's going to last forever. This is the point. Like these over here, this is dealing with things. This is situations where you're in, like, but this ain't what it's supposed to be. What it's supposed to be is two people striving for righteousness, coming together, building together in righteousness. These people that he's talking about, unbelieving husbands and believing wives, they gonna be fighting against each other all day. The unbelieving wife gonna be sneaking pork in the food. She gonna be teaching bad stuff to the kids, having the daughters walking around in crazy clothes and everything else. It's just a fight waiting to happen, right? And so I think that when we look at this whole idea of this, this so-called prohibited thing, because the Yahweh hates divorce.
He's putting it away, not divorce. I hate this.
There's this thing where it gets people trapped into these places that is just stifling, where the Most High wants for us to thrive and to flourish. And he's not going to have us be in these situations where we're just, in this place of death and sorrows. I don't know why I'm describing this so terrible, because that's what it is, right? The Most High, he's about life, and happiness and joy and all of these things. How are you supposed to have these things when two people aren't on the same page? I'm just saying you can't. So I'm saying all that just to say that Yeshua is not saying that, the only way that you could have a divorce is because of fornication. He's simply talking to these people about putting away, idea of putting away. They wasn't divorcing. They was just putting people away. Okay. All right, real quick. Let's go back. If anybody has any comments, put them in the comments. Let's just go back real quick. Let's just go down. Let's see here. I'll drop down to the bottom. Of 24. I'm saying to the bottom. We didn't even get to the middle, did we? Where's my cursor? We talked a little bit about this verse 5 the one week when we was talking about newlyweds over here. I always thought that this was an exciting verse. Deuteronomy 24 verse 5, where the man was to gladden his wife, brighten up his wife, bring gladness for a whole year. It was hard for me to gladden my wife. She was depressed for a whole year because she couldn't have a baby. It wasn't even a whole year, I should say. I didn't make that clear. It wasn't even a whole year. I just wanted to bring that up. But I always liked this part because, we sit up here and we think about, the thing that Yeshua was doing, that we witnessed over in Matthew 19, and also what the Most High is doing in this verse over here, is looking out for the women folk. The women folk were being treated badly, and Yeshua said to them people, the thing that you're doing is adultery. This ill treatment that you're doing is the same as adultery. Likewise, over here, I don't know if these people was doing anything bad to facilitate this, but it's or if it's just preemptive, where the new wife, this whole year, you was just dedicated unto gladdening and causing happiness in your wife's life, which I know wives always look at that and smile. Don't you smile a little bit when you see that right there? I mean, it's over for you now. Anyway. Your year is up. All right. I'm just playing. All right, let me just drop down. I want to just real quick drop down to 19. We'll just end up with 19 here. Read 19 again for us.
19 says, when you reap your harvest in your field and have forgotten a sheaf in the field, do not go back to get it. Let it be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, so that Yahweh your Elohim might bless you in all the work of your hands.
Mm-hmm. And the same kind of a thing with verse 20. And the same kind of a thing in verse 21, where it talks about this idea of, don't sit up here and try to get all that you can reap from your fields. Right? Leave some on purpose for the people who don't have any fields. Right? Don't sit up there and beat the olive trees and then sit up there and examine every branch to make sure that you got all of the olives off of the branch. Right? Let some stay there. Let some be up there for those who don't have. Right? It's interesting that the Torah, puts these things in place, which teaches us to be able to look out for those who aren't able to look out for themselves. Right? The fatherless, the widow, the people who should have people to fend for them, but don't. You fend for those ones. Right? Don't sit up there and only just worry about the person inside of your own gate, right? But intentionally have a heart for those that are outside of your gate. And so, it's just something that when we think about, again, this character of the Most High, and understanding his character, when we see these things, it helps for us to understand these potentially difficult things that we come across in regards to things that Yeshua says, or things, ways that we should understand these various laws. When we look and see the way that the Most High deals with those who are in need, and then at the same time, come up with these ideas where the Most High is going to have people bound and trapped in these terrible situations. His character is such that he makes a way for those who aren't able to make a way for themselves. That's within his character. And so it helps us to know his character because we're able to better understand, what he would or wouldn't be doing. What was you gonna say?
I was gonna say about this that the these crops, I believe they ripen like 50 days apart.
What, the olives and
the grapes, like they had like 50 days to Shavuot, and then 50 days to probably the grapes, I'm not sure, and then another 50 days to the olives. So there was like a space basically of about 50 days in between each of these reapings. But just the fact that in each of the harvests there was some for those who couldn't. So I just think about what the More at the event was saying about if you don't sow, then you beg.
mm-hmm.
That you reap begging.
Yeah.
So those who sowed, they reap whatever their harvest is. But then if you didn't sow for whatever reason, you reap begging.
Yeah. And even though you was slothful,
you still got.
Which is interesting. Yeah. All right, so all right, that being said, does anybody have any last minute comments, questions before we end up for the day? Okay, that being said, so we'll be done for now. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat to continue with a look at Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy's getting close to the end over here. Then we'll just start over again. All right, so that being said, make sure to remember to like the video, share the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and y'all willing, next week we'll be back, and I hope everybody has a blessed week. For now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.